Hi, I'm Judah Mischel, and you're listening to The Thread, powered by Meaningful Minute. Step number 2, Baderech. The second step in Rav Zusha's process of Teshuva is the second letter of the word Teshuva, Shin. Shevisi Hashem l'negdi tamid. I've set Hashem before me always. Pasuk in Tehillim. Teshuva aims to restore our sense of closeness with Hashem. Living with Shevisi means that in every moment, in every triumph, in every trouble, in every up and in every down, during difficult times and times where we're celebrating simchas, we recognize that Hashem is right here with us. The introduction to the Code of Jewish Law, the Shulchan Aruch, the opening paragraph, the Ramaz Hakdama, is that Shevisi, the recognition that God is before me and that I am before God always, is called Klal Gadol B'Torah, a major principle in the Torah. Uvamalos HaTzadikim, and it's among the great and important different elements of the tzadikim. It's b'ma'alos HaTzadikim. One of those traits, one of those elements of becoming someone who's righteous. The Vilna Gaon comments on the Ramah that it's not just one of the important midos of being an Eved Hashem, being before God and recognizing that I'm before Hashem, but it is the ultimate and crowning achievement, the most precious level among the rungs of the tzaddikim, Hashem hochim lifnei Hashem. There's nothing more essential, there's nothing more critical in our development as Ovdei Hashem and Yarei Shemaim than realizing that we are never alone. On one of his many and frequent visits to his Rebbe, to the Tzaddik Ador, to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rav Adin Steinsaltz, the noted author, lecturer, teacher, and commentator, presented the Rebbe with his latest publication. They would talk for a couple of minutes, and maybe he'd take $1, get a bracha, have yichidas, and speak to the Rebbe in all different ways about his professional and personal life. Before Rav Steinsaltz took leave from one of his visits, the Rebbe asked him how his Eishes Chayil is. He says, "How's your wife?" And he said, "Baruch Hashem, my wife is doing well, but she's not here with me. I'm traveling alone." And the Rebbe looked at him and said, "No, you're not traveling alone. A Jew is never alone. You're always with Hashem." Shevisi Hashem l'negdi tamid is us cultivating the recognition that we are always with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we are constantly in God's presence. It's a theme that comes across all the time in the Lubavitcher Rebbe's writings and in his lessons that he imparted to those who came to seek his counsel and advice. There was a fellow from England who was very anxious about his granddaughter's visit. She lived in the United States and would be traveling transatlantic. And he was concerned that the kid would be traveling as an unaccompanied minor from New York to London, and wrote the Rebbe for a bracha expressing his concern that his granddaughter be traveling alone. So the Rebbe got the letter, and one of the thousands and thousands of letters that the Rebbe personally responded to from petitioners of all walks of life. The Rebbe gets this letter about this person concerned about his granddaughter's travels. And the Rebbe made an amendment. He crossed out the letters un instead where it said unaccompanied minor, crossed it out, and wrote there in red ink, accompanied by Hashem. So when this fellow got the letter back a couple days later from the Rebbe, he got the reply that said, "My granddaughter is traveling accompanied by Hashem." There's no such thing as unaccompanied minor, unaccompanied adult. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with us all the time. A Yid is never alone. Kikarav elecha davar ma'od, our development as people who are in a state of drawing close to Hashem through Teshuva, not reactionary but proactively embracing these different values, goes through the prism of Shevisi. Shevisi Hashem l'negdi tamid. The recognition that I am with God and that God is before me always. It's close to us. It's not hard. In the way we speak, in the way we feel, in the way we see ourselves in the world, and in how we act. In terms of our consciousness, how do we cultivate a Shevisi mentality, a way of looking at the world through Shevisi? when we come to shul, often we see on the stender, on the wall, a sign that says, Da lifnei mi ata omed. Know before whom we stand. As if coming to shul, we're coming to do anything other than stand before the Ribbon Shel Olam. It already says that it's already a certain cue, something ironic that we have to be reminded of what we're doing there, B'chlal, as if standing there in talis and tefillin, or standing there holding a siddur locked and loaded to daven shachris or mincha or musaf or whatever it is that we're in shul for, Yom Naraim, or any time of the year, we're doing anything other than entering the palace of the king, so to speak. Barovam Hadras Melech to daven. We need a sign to remind us, Da lifnei mi ata omed. Remember, know before whom we stand. A Shevisi consciousness is liberating God from that specific time, place, liturgy, shul, beis medrash, or formal moment or experience. We need a Da lifnei mi ata omed, a Shevisi Hashem lenegdi samid sign on the refrigerator or on the computer. In my office cubicle, on the basketball court, when I'm in my car, in the bedroom or in the boardroom, is where this step in Teshuva really needs to be activated. Cultivating a sense that God is before me and with me always. There are those who say that that in ritual and in the day-to-day locking into our sanctuaries, into our formal experience, things become kind of flaccid, and they just become kind of mitzvah sanashim melumuda. We get into rote, and we get into. But if we're aware of the fact that we are with Hashem and that we can speak with Hashem and interact with God, and that God is with us constantly, everywhere, and everything we're doing, then when we come to shul, it could be even more meaningful. There's a ma'aseh that the Rebbe Rav Judah was once riding on a wagon with chevra, and the Gentile wagon driver, we were passing by an apple orchard, and he pulled over to the side of the road and jumped off the wagon, kind of looked around, saw that there was nobody there, and said to Rav Judah and the people, "Do me a favor, I'm just going to go grab a couple apples. Holler if you see that there's someone watching." So what are they going to do? They kind of nodded, and this guy jumps off the wagon. He runs over and starts about to climb up a tree and grab off a couple apples in order to eat. And Rav Judah says, he's watching. They're coming. The guy quickly stops and runs. He runs back into the wagon and hits the hay, and they hit the road. And he says, "Whoa, thank you for having my back. Who did you see? Saw the watchman coming?" So Rav Judah looked at him and smiled and said, "No, not the watchman of the field." He just pointed up and said, him, the Ribbon Shel Olam, he's always watching us. Ki karov elecha davar ma'od. If a Yid is we're living with this consciousness of Shevisi, that we're before God always, we'll be in a constant state of Teshuva. Baal Shem Tov explains that Shevisi comes from the same word, or is the root of the same word as hishtavut, equanimity. That whatever happens to a person, let it all be equal to us. During night or during day, during difficult times, during happy times, Baal Shem Tov says that the value of living with Shevisi means that we should enter into a state where it's okay. That whether people are praising us or shaming us, no matter what happens in our lives, a Yid should always say, Halo zeh mi'ito yisbarach. This too is from Hashem. Halo zeh mi'ito yisbarach. Which is another way of saying in our own words, Ribbon Shel Olam, you're with me. Ribbon Shel Olam, I'm with you. We're together. I'm in your presence all the time. Cultivating that way of speaking is what Rabbi Nachman describes in Sich Saran. See, when people want to learn Breslov, you learn from Rabbi Nachman. So people enter into the world of the Likutei Moharan, and that's receiving Rabbi Nachman's formal teachings. But if we want to know what Rabbi Nachman was talking about at the Shabbos table, or what the Chevra were talking about when they were traveling from Breslov to Kremenchug, or going from Mezhebaz to Uman, so you have to learn Sichas Haran. Those are Rabbi Nachman's conversations. And the second teaching of Sichas Haran, Rabbi Nachman lays this out very clearly. When a Yid wakes up in the morning, we wake up in the morning, we wash Negel Wasser, Moda'ani, we recognize that our day is starting. We're starting the day as Jewish people, and Hashem has given us back our soul, a renewal on life. He says that as soon as we finish our Moda'ani, first things first, before we even begin our day in davening formally, we say, Ribono Shel Olam, I'm yours, I'm with you, you're with me. No matter what happens today, no no matter what, my successes, my failures. I have a whole day filled with intentions. I have a whole strategy and plan to have my day filled with kvod shamayim, with mitzvos. But we know what's going to happen. We're going to fall short. We have goals, we have ideas, we have aspirations, and we make mistakes. Things don't go always according to plan. Rabbeinu says in Sicha Beis, in the second teaching in Sicha Saran, put it on Hashem. Me, my family, my loved ones, my job, my parnasa, my responsibilities, my learning, my mitzvahs, my avoda, everything Hashem, it's with you, it's on you. And that way I sign it over to the Ribono Shel Olam, and I enter into the headspace of Shevisi, that God is with me all the time, in my ups as well as in my downs. When I feel like things are clicking, when I have a good flow, when I'm feeling successful and I'm feeling right and feeling proud of myself, and the opposite as well. Shevisi Hashem lenegdi. Sometimes we feel that God is oppositional. We feel like we're just far, like we're getting resistance. We're being pushed back in our Yiddishkeit. In those moments, Hashem is with me as well, in my ups as well as in my downs. To say, b'dibur, b'ficha, with our own words, Hashem, I'm with you. Hashem, you're with me. Here, there, and everywhere. La'asoso, the third dimension of experiencing teshuva as something which is proactive. To cultivate Shevisi and have it manifest on our everyday lives, Torah gives us very clear direction. V'ata Yisrael, and now, Ma Hashem Elokecha Shoel Mi'imach. What is it that Hashem is asking of us? Kim liyiras Hashem Elokecha. To have awareness of God, to be someone who's careful with our actions, to know that we're being held accountable for all that we do. Kim liyiras Hashem Elokecha. Lalechas b'chol derachav. To imitate God, to walk in His ways, to go baderech with Ribono Shel Olam. La'ava oso. To love God, to serve God, to serve God with all of our hearts and all of our souls, with our Yitzhar Tov and Yitzhar Hara. The Torah tells us very clearly to just give ourselves over completely to Hashem, all of our passions and our desires, all of our strengths and all of our weaknesses, to know that in all of that we are constantly with Hashem. Gemara in Menachos, Mem Gimel Amud Beis, Darshans. What is this exactly that Hashem is asking of us? Ma Hashem Elokecha. What is it that God is asking us? God says, don't read Ma, what, as a question, Mem Hey, but instead, Darshans, Meya. What is it that Hashem is asking of us? Meya. Hashem is asking 100 of us. Tosfos points out that there's 100 letters in the pasuk of Ata Yisrael, Ma Hashem Elokecha, Shoel. What is Hashem is asking? But the Gemara tells us that Hashem is asking us to be with Him, to live with Him, to be aware with Hashem's presence by making 100 brachas a day. Meya, 100 brachas a day. The Rambam in Hilchos Tefillah lists all of these different brachas that we say throughout the day, whether it's in davening or brachas hanen and brachas before and after food. When we use the restroom throughout the day, we have these speed bumps for us to slow down and to be aware of Hashem's presence in our lives. Before we eat, after we eat, when we wake up and when we go to sleep. Through our formal prayer, when we lock in Lefnei Miata Omeid in Shul or in our structured service of Shachris and Mincha and Ma'ariv and benching, and other times throughout the day, to make sure that 100 times we're saying brachas, to recognize, like the Nefesh HaChaim explains, that Hashem, so to speak, is pouring Himself into our lives, into every single moment. To live with Shevisi and proactive tshuva means to restore our awareness of God's presence in our lives all the time. What's special about brachas and what makes that such a takeaway, such a practical takeaway to cultivate Shevisi is a beautiful insight from Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin. Tzadok says that part of our chinuch of children is that we get them to say brachas, and it's interesting that how much more kavana and brachas I have when my children are around, and how much more I'm insisting on saying it out loud, carefully and slowly when my kids are around. Okay, maybe that's also part of becoming more honest and more real in our tshuva. But Reb Tzadok explains that a child who is able to recite brachas is called a katan sheyodeh lamim mevarchin. A katan, a child who knows to whom he is making a bracha. When it's not just about training our children or our students or ourselves to just kind of chirp and say words so that we can check a box and then eat the food. It's not just a matir, but brachos reveal a different construct, something internal. L'mi sha'ata mavarchin, to know to whom we're blessing, for whom we're blessing, where this comes from. It's an experience. Making a bracha is an experience of yirat shamayim, of awareness that this didn't happen on its own. That life doesn't happen on its own. And that everything that we have in the world that we're enjoying and that we're experiencing, that we're engaging in, including mitzvahs, are an expression of our closeness with Hashem. To know that we're making this bracha, and that with this bracha, lamim mevarchin, to who I'm making this bracha with and for and toward, is instituted for the purpose of making sure that we say bekavana, to hit a speed bump, to slow down in it. Cultivating Shevisi, it's not hard. It's not challenging. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just like Tamimus, speaking honestly and simply, real is revealing an innocent inner child, breaking things down to the most simple fundamentals. All of our practice in Yiddishkeit, all of our Torah and mitzvahs, all of our interactions with people are all governed by halacha. Breaking halacha down to its most basic fundamentals is the introduction to Shulchan Aruch that we began with. To know, not b'malas hatzadikim, that one of the things that are important to reach the level of tzadikim is to know that God is before us, but it is the step. Reishis Chachma Yiras Hashem. The beginning of all wisdom, the beginning of all of our practice, of all of our Yiddishkeit, is knowing that we are with Hashem, that we're never alone. There's no such thing as traveling unaccompanied in this world. Even if wherever we're up to in our lives, there is no such thing as being alone. Hashem is always with us. Shevisi helps us cultivate that constant awareness. And when we have that constant awareness of Hashem, we have these moments and these touch points where we are experiencing God, when we're speaking it out, and when we're trying to think and stay mindful of the Ribono Shel Olam, like the Ramchal says, anything that he was able to accomplish in his life, the Mesilas Yesharim, the Derech Hashem, Das Tfunos, was because he remembered every 15 minutes, Shevisi Hashem Lanegdi Tamid. Every 15 minutes he remembered that there's a God that he is before and that is with him. I think the B'ditchever would come and every so often in the Beis Medrash would bang on the bima and make an announcement. Yidden, there's a God in the world and we're responsible to him. I don't know, maybe we could put a little reminder in our phone, or send a future me email to ourselves for 15 minutes from now to remember, Yesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there is such a thing as God in the world. God creates us and sustains us, and that Hashem is with me. V'halo zeh mi'ito yisbarach, like the Baal Shem Tov says. This is also from Hashem. Speaking that way, introducing or reintroducing God talk into our conversations, focusing and being careful on our 100 brachos a day, will help us travel baderech through the year with this positive embracing of this essential value of cultivating constant awareness with the Ribono Shel Olam. And in that way, we'll be in a state of teshuva always.